Welcome once again back to the lab. It is your old Professor Pilk. Now, today we need to talk about this new raid that's incoming. We haven't really talked about it so far, and I do apologize for running a little bit late on this information this week, but Metagross is incoming. Now, you can still up through tomorrow, basically at the time Metagross drops, or if you haven't even done it yet, you can kind of forego Metagross for a little bit and continue farming Shiny Goldingo. That is completely a thing. If that's more your thing, you can actually take your Switch offline tonight, and you'll have that basically until the next time you go online. So it is kind of a handy thing. If you want to continue farming that, by all means, go for it. Now, the whole thing with these pseudos that they're basically dropping for all this stuff is it seems like these are all going to be Pokemon that will mega evolve when we get to Legends Z Alpha here shortly. So there is some benefit to this, though I'm pretty sure Legends Z Alpha, it is going to take a while before that actually opens up to Pokemon Home. I want to say Scarlet and Violet took something like 6 months to open up to that. So, it's not a huge rush. But for those of you like trying to get like an edge on building some competitive mon and things like that, this could be a huge benefit. So Metagross is incoming tomorrow, and we know that he's going to have a Steel Terra. So we need to talk about, first things first, defensively, how that's going to affect Metagross, and then how you want to approach that. So once again, we're going to go over to Bulbapedia here. Shouts out to Bulbapedia. Love them. He's being a Steel type, or Steel Terra type, that means he's going to be pure Steel, which essentially means that he's going to be weak to fighting, ground, and fire, which leaves quite a bit on the table. There's a lot to kind of take on here. So let's talk about fighting first and foremost. So when it comes to fighting types, you're really talking about defensively, he's weak to flying, psychic, and fairy. So will Metagross have access to either one of these moves? And I think the no-brainer answer here is absolutely. He's going to at least, if nothing else, have psychic abilities because, well, he is still psychic. But let's look at his moveset real quick. So one thing we haven't really talked about yet are his base stats. He's got a decent amount of HP, but his physical attack and his physical defense are through the roof. So you really probably want to focus on special attackers here, because that special defense being only 90, it's a only 90, and speed of only 70 is going to leave him pretty susceptible-ish to special attacks, and especially speedy mon. Plus, he doesn't have a lot of HP comparatively, so, a good special attacker is going to be able to break through that pretty quickly. We also need to talk about his ability real quick, because that brings up some definite questions. And I promise we'll get back to moves here in a second, but this is a really important factor here. So Metagross's hidden ability is light metal, but kind of like we talked about previously, we have recently had 7-star raids that didn't use the hidden ability. And it's really not that big of a deal anymore for competitive mon, because now that we have ability patches, ability capsules, and things like that, you can change their abilities pretty frequently. So I'm willing to bet he's probably going to have the clear body ability. That is going to be my assessment here. If he has light metal, I don't know why. I don't foresee that being a huge issue. But clear body, most likely, because what's clear body going to do? It's going to prevent you from affecting him with status moves, which is going to make this raid a little tiny bit harder, but not too hard. And now let's kind of go back to combating fighting types. Because initially, with clear body and all that, my initial thought was Iron Hands or even Hariyama. But with clear body, we can't really debuff him, though you can't really buff those units. However, if he has a psychic move on board, that makes that a little bit dicey. And of course, a physical psychic move is right there in his original build. He's got access to Zen Headbutt, which could hit really, really, really hard. It is a little bit lower in accuracy, but a 90 accuracy can still be a very dangerous thing. So I think Zen Headbutt is a no-brainer in this build. Being Steel Terra, you could probably guess Meteor Mash is most likely going to be in there. But he does also have Flash Cannon, though I kind of doubt he's going to have a special attack. I think he's going to go all physical. But we'll see. Maybe he does have Flash Cannon. Hard to tell. But even as you go down here, with moves like Psyshock, Psychic Fangs is another big probability. And that's Psychic Fangs is a 85% or 80, power 85, 100% accuracy. So maybe even Psychic Fangs over Zen Headbutt, which would be really terrifying. But either way, not going to be a fun one you're going to want to deal with. So I think that kind of knocks fighting types out of the realm of possibility. Though, in the case of like Iron Hands and Hariyama, we have actually dealt with that before. It's going to hurt, but I think you could buff your way out of it. The problem is that's going to make moves like Belly Drum and stuff like that really make those Pokemon great in raids. It's going to make those a little harder to pull off. Not impossible, just harder. Some really good, I mean, if you really Iron Defense one of those units and build them up before you Belly Drum, maybe. It's hard to do during a raid. But either way, the Psychic moves are going to make that pretty difficult. But let's talk about the other two potentials up for grabs here. Now, there's one thing I want to mention here. So we're talking here about ground, and ground would be weak to water, grass, and ice. So we're really looking for a water move, a grass move, or an ice move, but also with the fire types that weakness, he also has water, rock, and ground. So really, if there's a water move in his build, that's going to make this really tough. But I'll be honest with you, I don't think there's any water moves here that are really worthwhile. In fact, I think the only one he's got is Rain Dance, which, why would he even have that? I guess there's situations in which that could be handy, especially going up against fire types. You could really depower fire types with Rain Dance, so that's actually a potential, but I really don't think we're going to see that. I think that's kind of not going to be a factor. So going back specifically to ground types, we're looking at grass and ice. So are there any grass moves or ice moves? He does have access to Grass Knot, but I kind of don't feel like Grass Knot is probably going to be a thing. Trailblaze, probably not. So, yeah, those are the only two grass moves, unless there's no, and he wouldn't have egg moves. Well, maybe. But no egg moves. So, yeah, not really a grass move up for grabs. So that's a definite consideration right there. What about ice? He does have Ice Punch. So that does make fighting, ground types a little dicey. So with Ice Punch, so let's go over our moveset here that we've kind of built. So looking most likely Zen Headbutt, maybe Psychic Fangs. Those are two heavy likelihoods. And then obviously that's going to be our Psychic move. And then for our Steel move, let's see. Iron Head. Iron Head would be really strong Steel move for him to have. Not probably Steel Beam. I'm thinking he's going to have a physical move. Gyro Ball's possible, but I really feel like, honestly, Iron Head's most likely going to be the move. So we're really talking Psychic Fangs to Zen Headbutt, Iron Head, and then more than likely Ice Punch, just to kind of round that out to give himself a little bit more. So that's three moves right there that we can kind of assume right out of the gate that he's going to have. But going back to the fire types, ground, rock, or water, and he does have access to Earthquake. In fact, all these mod have had Earthquake so far, so it's a high likelihood he'll probably actually have Earthquake, which would make fire types really kind of risky. So really, I hate to say it, he's got a good counter just about everything out there. I would honestly say, though, ground types. Now, here's the thing with ground types. He does have the access to Magnet Rise. Is it Magnet Rise? I think it's Magnet Rise. Anyway, he does have access to a move that would give him the ability to kind of like mitigate ground moves. So more than likely, that is not going to be the case either. So, honestly, I really feel like maybe, despite the Psychic, honestly, maybe fighting types might be your best bet, because we already know we can't debuff him. You can buff your unit. If you want to bet on a Pokemon we've already built, you might honestly want to look at something that's got a fighting move, or alternatively, as we've done in the past, pick a mon that he is not particularly strong against, something that kind of resists steel, with a Stellar Terra that would then have a fighting ground or fire move that you can utilize with that Stellar Terra. We've used that a lot recently in some of the other mod. Now, will our current build with Electros be effective against him? I really don't kind of think so, but let's kind of look at Electros real quick because we have built that Pokemon, and that would kind of resist a little bit of what we got going on, especially if we have like Earthquake and stuff like that. Let's take a look at him real quick because we have used him a lot lately. So just kind of spitballing some builds here, and we're going to be using Vikun for some of these, just as a cheat sheet, so to speak, so I can get you a good visualization. I was thinking, who would have Nasty Plot and Flamethrower as like a really good moveset? Now, Vikun is not always like super accurate when it comes to these builds. I'll show you a good example later. But you've got like Chimchar, obviously in his evolutions, basically all the fire starters for the most part. We've even used Zoroark in the past for some weird stuff. There's lots of options here for units that have Nasty Plot and Flamethrower that you could utilize to take this on. I was also thinking ground. We're thinking Earth Power and Nasty Plot. What would have those? Well, according to Vikun, only Mew does. But obviously we know if Mew does, Mewtwo does. For the most part. Not always, but for the most part. But also looking this up, Landorus does. For those of you guys that like legendary builds, I think Landorus would be really fun for this event. And obviously they don't have to have Nasty Plot. They could also have Calm Mind, which we'll get to in a moment. But the other option on the table here is Aura Sphere. And once again, one that doesn't see Nasty Plot and Aura Sphere, though I know there's several Pokemon out there that have Nasty Plot and Aura Sphere. So those are three different types of moves you can use here. But as I was working on this, I was thinking to myself, what about Armorage? Because he's a Psychic fire unit. That fire would be super effective. The Psychic would basically would negate the Psychic damage. And as we go down here, he's going to resist Psychic. Obviously, Ice is also cut in half. So that cuts down two of the moves we were thinking of so far. Steel is also cut in half. The only thing you got to worry about at that rate is the Earthquake. Earthquake would definitely hit super effective, but that's the only move that's super effective. Everything else is cut down significantly. So in that regard, that's actually quite a problem. And we used Armorage quite a bit in the past. Now the problem is Armorage doesn't have Nasty Plot. But what does he have? Calm Mind. And Lava Plume. Calm Mind. So you could Calm Mind up. You could hit him with Lava Plume. You could hit him with not Incinerate. You can hit him with Flamethrower. You can hit him with all kinds of stuff. So lots of options there on the table. So my money right now is kind of on this build right here. I think this build is going to be phenomenal. Now, would you want to use a Pure Fire? You could. 100% would work. Pure Fire? Fire Terra could work. I like the Stellar Terra for this because that's going to retain the Psychic resistance. Now, you could go away from that and you could use the Fire Terra and eat those Psychic attacks, because by the time you've Calm Minded up, you should be fine. But, all said and done, also I think he has Flash Cannon, which is also only, he does have Iron Defense, so you could Iron Defense up 3 times, Calm Mind 3 times, and then you should be set. I don't think much of anything will hurt you after that point. Because once again, going on stats here, special attack 125 with 100 defense and 85 HP, I think you'll be okay. And you'll still be faster. So my money currently is on this build. But I've been wrong in the past. So we'll see how this plays out over the next 24 hours. But that's my assessment at the moment. Let me know what you guys think. Is there anybody that you're prepping for this? Or do you think I'm completely wrong about the moveset? Comment section is yours. And I'll be back with more in about 24 hours when we actually get that raid.